Welcome to the Bonsai Time Podcast. This is Kevin.
Kelly.
And Ryan. And today's episode, we are having a bonsai chat about historical trees, specifically that of the Yamaki White Pine, survived the bombing of Hiroshima. And we'll just go on and on and on. Let's go. Yeah, we recorded cloud.
So I'm gonna pretend like we didn't say any of that just now. Hey everybody, Kevin, what's new with you? I heard you had a lot of life events lately.
As the last episode we had chatted about, said stay tuned, everyone. Well, staying tuned is tuning in now. So, as of recently, I just went to Japan and came back, and I visited Hiroshima for two reasons. First reason was to see the whole side of the other story that's given from Japan's perspective and what happened, and in relation to all the things that transpired. And the
Like
second
what?
reason
Like
being
what happened in Hiroshima? I'm not read up. I'm not
the
yeah.
atomic bomb and everything
Oh,
else.
okay.
So,
Okay, we're going that far
yes,
back.
yeah,
Yeah,
post World War II. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
gotcha.
And then the second reason being the there's a tree, as people may know or may not know, that survived the bombing of Hiroshima that is owned and is at the National Bonsai and Penjing Museum located in Washington, D.C., the National Arboretum. And the reason I went to the Hiroshima for seeing Hiroshima was to come back and see the tree because I was awarded the apprenticeship for 2025. But
The
I
one
was
at
not,
the
yep, the National Bonsai and Penjing first curator's apprenticeship.
Mhm.
And I sadly was not able to start because of certain things in certain agencies having certain hiring freezes and or cuts. So I was given the opportunity, but not able to start due to certain things out of my control. So with that though, I wanted to talk about my experience in relation to having seen the tree before, and then how I feel like maybe we could discuss as a group, or just getting your thoughts in relation to what trees you've worked on with significant history or the lives that have gone through it, and how you maybe feel like it's interested you in interpretation of where you can go from there, or what respect you give to trees now that had those stories. Yeah, that's kind of like what I was thinking, because I don't know if it's ever talked enough. I mean, things are talked about in the way of like, oh, we do this because it's preserving this, but what if we really go to the other side of the story to find out where it actually started? Because, you know, my family and I flew to Tokyo. I made a point to go to Hiroshima on a bullet train for 4 hour ride one way. So it was a
Wow.
total of a 10 hour day. Um, 8 hours of that was just traveling on a bullet train. It was the most interesting thing because I saw Mount Fuji for the first time, which was beautiful. And then I would go into rice paddy areas that were clear green, beautiful sun. And then the next hour would be covered in snow about 3 feet tall. So it just really back and forth, back and forth. And the anticipation of not knowing what to expect, it was this idea of, well, I've seen the tree, but I haven't seen the other side of the story of how this tree became so afflicted with this atomic energy. And no pun intended, maybe a little, but it's in relation to what story does it hold, right? You both haven't seen the tree yet, have you? Have you guys seen it?
Not in person, but it's the big white pine
Yeah, the
that's got all
Yamaki
the
White Pine.
lichen,
Yeah.
and the
Hmm.
shape is coincidentally kind of like a mushroom cloud if you look at it from far away.
Yes. It's very serendipitous, I would say, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Kelly, have you seen the tree we're talking about?
The one in DC, the one that was
Hmm.
gifted. Yeah,
Hmm.
I did. It's big, and I think it was like 9 generations of bonsai masters that took care of it, or from the same family.
Same family. I think it's like five, six, seven. Yeah, I can't remember. But
Uh,
this year it's approximately turning 400 years old. And just in response to that, it was given as a gift of friendship and all this other stuff. And I mean, this is all on the websites and history. It's a National Geographic, I believe, and other things. Um, there's just so much at play there, but there's also the other side of so much that we don't know. So I went to Hiroshima, went to the memorial. It was very impactful. in many ways, more than I ever thought it would be, as my wife had said it would be. Because in Japan, schools will take a field trip to Hiroshima to get the story. It's in place of helping kids understand what not to do and not repeat as far as history, because they've seen the damage it's done and they don't want to have that happen again. And it was very eye-opening to see what the capacity of that um, power has to an area, specifically when it's dropped from a plane and blows up
So
from a bomb.
was this like one museum in the city,
Hmm.
or was it multiple different memorial sites kind of spread throughout?
That's a good question. The museum itself is pretty big. You can walk through it in like as long or slow as you want. There's multiple levels.
Hmm.
Um, the first level you walk into is you're getting put into all the things where there are clothes from children. There are pictures of people that have severe injuries and or like black rain spots on clothes or black rain spots on walls. They have physical structures of like where people's shadows were imprinted and things. I don't want to get too gruesome because it can get very unsettling. Some people were getting almost sick in there. It's pretty interesting to watch. It's just people's emotions are very all over the place in there. Being that as it should be, and out of respect, it should kind of instigate this concept of like, oh my God, this is what happened. There were people from all over the world in there, which is very interesting, by the way. I heard French, everything. It was really cool to see that now that people were just visiting. Um, Made our way through the outside. That is one of the remaining buildings that was never rebuilt, but it's is there as a reminder, a physical reminder, and also as a preservation tool to showcase the damage that was done. You can find it online, but I'll also post the pictures I have. Obviously, the energy of that area was huge. There was I think they call it the Eternal Flame. It was like a waterfall with like a flame that was going. There was over a thousand cranes. I believe the saying, and if I get this wrong, listeners, I apologize, but I believe the saying goes, if you make 1,000 cranes, it can promote world peace or something of that way. My wife would kill me because I'm not getting it right. But they had this huge crane statue made out of metal, and then they had all these display cases full of handmade origami cranes from kids in schools all around the country and maybe the world. I don't know. A lot of it was written in Japanese, and my reading is not that good. But one thing I did notice is that there was a lot of people on tour. I didn't do a tour. I didn't have the time, but also I wanted to kind of find my own way. And I was thinking about the tree this whole time. It was very interesting. And I went to one of the tour guides and I specifically asked about this tree, if she knew this tree, because I looked on Google Maps and it was about a 2.5 mile radius from the blast zone where the museum is at is the initial blast zone. And I asked a few people that are from Hiroshima, and they had no idea about it, which was very interesting to me, which also made me kind of sad. But they were intrigued and they wanted to know more. And I gave them as little bit as I could of my broken Japanese and English mixed in as we were conversing that way. Um, but it really made me think about how that can impact our understanding as bonsai people, artists, hobbyists, whatever you want to call it, and our own interpretation of preserving history and moving it forward, but also understanding that there is such a crucial role in not just foregoing the people or the lives or the events that made this tree the way it is. And I know that's talked about a lot, but I guess for me it was more impactful because I saw the other side of it, where this tree survived literally an atomic bomb. And it was enlightening and also very frightening to know that that tree is still going on. Like it's going to be 400 years old, approximately, like I said. And yeah, I mean, within all that being said, not to sound rambling, but where do you both think that that could influence and or affect in a positive outcome, uh, a better understanding or interpretation of what bonsai can be, especially in America? We have historical trees of value, but do we give enough identity to that?
You ask the hard questions, Kevin.
I
Mhm.
know it's my job.
I'm gonna let Ryan go first because he's smarter than me.
I think that I don't know. I don't know. Let me think.
It's a stunner, everyone.
Yeah.
This goes to
S-
anybody listening too. I mean, you talk to yourself, but just don't sound crazy.
So you're asking, can you rephrase the question, Kevin, or
I
phrase
was
it,
gonna
say it
say, can
again?
you repeat it again?
Um, do we, as a bonsai society in America or the world, of people practicing the art, crafts, making a living from it or not, do you believe that we give enough time and understanding into the identity of the tree that was there before we had worked on it, or even in the presence of it?
Okay, so do American bonsai artists or collectively bonsai appreciators give enough appreciation for the history of a tree before we're working on it? Is that what you're saying?
More or less, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
To your own interpretation, of
Mm.
course. Yeah.
Okay.
That's our question. And that's what I thought
Mm,
about a lot going to Hiroshima all the way there. I mean,
hmm
the train was going like 200 plus miles an hour. So it was like, but 4 hours, right? And then coming back, it was a completely different interpretation. But in relation to, I still didn't have an answer. And I don't know if I ever will, but I would like to hear thoughts. That's what I'm saying.
Well, it's I don't want to stray too much away from where you're starting out. So if I'm going off topic, you can let me know if I'm
That's
taking it in
fine.
a different direction.
Let's flow.
But the first place that goes to mind for me is that for a tree to have history, it it needs to have either one person taking care of it for a long time who knows that history, or to have some records that's clearly given to the next person, like written or photographic records given to the
Hmm,
next owner.
right.
So I do think that there are probably a lot of trees where there are no records, and maybe
Hmm,
it passed through some of the old, like famous Japanese hands in the original California bonsai scene, and then it went to Dennis Makishima, and then it went to
right,
someone
right.
else when he had his big auction. And so they may not like maybe it was a tree of significance that was once touched by John Naka, but nobody's going to remember at this point unless someone has that photographic evidence or written evidence, you know?
Oh yeah.
And
Like similar to the Chase Rosé tree that we repotted that night at his place, right? Where the last
mhm.
person to touch it was John Nago.
Right, you wouldn't know that unless you were there when it happened or
Hmm.
you were like very directly told that. So
Yeah.
just by looking at it, we wouldn't have known that.
Right.
And there's also something to be said about it's tempting to have as many trees as possible, but the more you have, the harder it is to keep good records on your trees. So
Hmm.
if you have trees with significant history, maybe that's uh, certain ones you will spend less time on, or um, well, maybe less time is not the right way to put it, but if you have certain trees that are more historically significant in that you know they have some of that history, then maybe it's worth investing more time in the record keeping and sharing, like kind of taking those progress pictures over time and that kind of thing.
Hmm.
Mm.
What about you, Kelly?
Mm. I mean, I appreciate it. I can't speak for everybody else. I don't think everyone
Mm.
has the same appreciation. It's kind of like what Ryan said. You kind of have to know who it belonged to and the record. And for instance, the tree that's at the National Arboretum, the one that was gifted to them. Is that the one you're talking about?
Well, and your mic just broke up. Can we can end this
Oh,
part out? Can
It
you
like
repeat that?
fast forwarded a little bit through what you were saying.
sorry. Must be my connection. The white pine that's at the DC Arboretum.
The white
Hmm.
pine that's at the DC, yeah.
Yeah. So like I saw it and I was like, oh wow, this is cool because I saw all the pictures leading up to it and I read the
Mm.
story and that it was taken care of and it was a gift of peace. or a
Hmm.
representative of a gift of peace. So I was like, well, I appreciate that. That's nice. And I stood there, looked at it for, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes or so, then moved on. So I do appreciate it. I'm glad it's there, but I don't think a lot of people get to see stuff like that.
Right.
Sorry,
Especially
am I
from
good
that.
with sound?
You're good now. Yeah, we can edit that part out
Mm.
if where it wasn't.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's a good point where I told people in Hiroshima because they overheard me talking about the tree. Like, where is this at? Because it's a historical artifact now, right? In relation to it lived through something that it should never have lived through. In response that atomic
Hmm.
bombs are so disastrous. But another question that just came up when I was listening to you all, it's like your thoughts, which are really good and fully valid. Should we have these trees in private collections only? So then the world and people can see them in the public space as opposed to a private garden.
Yeah, I think, every owner of a significant tree can kind of judge for themselves
Mm,
if they think it is significant enough to merit being in a national collection, public collection, something like that, then it
mm.
may be worth considering an arrangement like that at some point in time. Um, I don't know how many other trees there are that have a story like that one in DC. Like that's the
Right,
only one
right,
we know of,
right,
but maybe there are
right.
more that
Well,
never left Japan,
there's the ones in the Pacific Bonsai Museum that um, were started in a tin can in the internment camp.
Yeah.
The World War Bonsai display had the one black pine that was sadly stolen and happily returned, and it came back thankfully. Um, you know, Kelly, you worked at the public gardens a lot. Are there trees of significance that you've worked on in relation to just even local significance or world
Hmm.
acclaim or anything that way?
I think they recreated Goshen, or maybe Goshen 2 or 3 is out there.
There's a couple.
Um,
Yeah, the first one's at the
out here,
National.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I saw that one and I purposely went there to see that one.
Mm.
um, I think so there's that one, and then there's a couple trees. One that I think was styled by Kimura. I guess at one point he
Mm.
was out here, so he styled a California juniper, and
Mm.
another that was styled by Ryan Neal. So
Oh,
those are
nice.
kind of neat to see, right? Because you're seeing like somebody's work. I think with the historical tree, like the historic trees, like the one in the arboretum that has some kind of significance and meaning to it.
Mm.
Um, I think the appreciation for me comes from not only the story, but like because there's meaning behind it, it's emotional. So you're looking
Yeah.
at it and you're like, wow, I hope this thing doesn't die. I hope whoever's
Yeah,
taking
right.
care of
Mm.
it takes really good care of it because this is a really important tree because of what it represents. It's, the Japanese gave it to the Americans
Mhm.
as I wouldn't say it was a peace offering, but whatever it was, symbol of
A
peace.
friendship
Yeah,
gift or
friendship.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Mm.
Um, and then there's some other trees that are there. I'm like, I'm sure they're great trees, they're significant too, but they didn't have the whole like story. So
Yeah,
you
the
didn't,
provenance, right?
yeah, you didn't get to see the whole story. Like, there's nothing out there like a whole page of like a page of like explaining what this tree's from. I think a few of them. I could be wrong, Kevin, but I think some are from like Iran or Iraq. I don't know.
I
Um,
don't know. Yeah, I don't know. There's so many trees in the collection. I can't even begin to, I've only seen them
yeah,
obviously in the public space.
they're out there with the same tree that we're talking about. Um, uh, like the same thing. I saw the Goshen at the National Arboretum, which is my
Hmm.
reason for going to making that trip to go out see that. And then next to it
Mm.
was the Twisted Harry Harrell um, California juniper. I wouldn't know who Harry Harrell is except the people here tell me about him.
Mm.
Um, I saw some others from people I know that I met here in California. I saw their trees out there. I'm like, this is great. There's a John Naka tree. I guess it just gives me not appreciation for the tree, but appreciation for the people that came before. and kind of made bonsai popular, taught it to people. I mean, maybe now it's at a different level, but at least back then they did the best they could with what they had and what they knew. Um, so when I
Right.
look at those, I'm in awe just because it's like, oh, these are, the guys that came before. These are the guys that started it and spread the teachings of it or how to do it. And that's, I think, what means a lot to me versus the tree itself. Because, like, if I didn't know it belonged to them, it wouldn't have that much meaning. Like, oh, it's a nice tree. It's old. Someone must have made this years ago. But because it's John Naka or Harry Harao or that tree from Japan, like, it means a little bit more because there's some emotion behind it or some kind of emotional
Mm.
connection. I think
Mm.
that, at least for me.
That's an interesting point. Yeah. I mean, the thing that comes to mind when you said that is like the tree I was just discussing that I believe it's the black pine that was created in the internment camp that's in the Pacific Bonsai Museum.
Hmm.
From what I recall, and anyone listening or you both on here, Ryan and Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong, but the family of the person who started that tree didn't even know it existed until it was stolen. And then they went up to the museum to see it and got this whole preview of the whole World War Bonsai exhibit. And it was like the grandson saw it, seeing like his grandfather or great grandfather's tree was pretty amazing because they're like the son was there. Like, yeah, I think it was the son was there with his family and his son saw it and were like, we had no idea. And they found out about it because the news reported it, obviously, and it went around circulation, probably most of the bonsai world. And
Hmm.
yeah, it just made me think about that because I'm like, oh yeah, like, you know, I mean, Kelly, Ryan and I started what I called the Bonsai Rejuvenation and Volunteer Project at the Dawes Arboretum in Ohio, in Newark. And for me, I think that started this whole concept of like history preservation, curation, and understanding when to move a tree forward because of health or when to be able to move it forward based on our own wants and desires, which is a hard
Hmm.
thing to do historically because if you leave a tree in stasis, it's not going to do well long term because it's always growing. This is the only art that is ever evolving, as opposed to like a painter painting something on one canvas 5 different times, right? Um, I don't know. Ryan, I mean, you're still doing the rejuvenation project. How does that entail for you to work those trees in concept of what they hold, even for Ohio?
Um, well, that's a good question because I don't really know the history of many of those trees there.
Well, yeah, because that
Um,
goes back to their records not being
yeah, they
sadly
have
available,
a
or
record, but it's not printed anywhere. It's
yeah.
digital. So I think it's one of those things where if they had a full-time curator, maybe they could put more of that information out to the public,
Hmm.
or work on making sure those records are kept up to date and everything. Um, So yeah, I think this whole conversation speaks to the value of public bonsai collections. These people that deliberately pick out certain trees that are of significance and then dive deep into sharing those stories, and they have like a full text explainer for a lot of the trees, or not all, but maybe a lot of them. Or for special exhibits like the World War Bonsai, they'll highlight certain ones that fit with the theme. So it does make a case for that, especially as private collections usually don't go into that much detail on the history of their trees. Usually, the stories of a tree that is being presented at like a exhibit maybe is more transient. It's more
Mm,
like this is how the tree looks today, but it may usually people are not explaining the whole history of the tree in
right.
their exhibit displays. So yeah, this whole discussion kind of brings up an interesting idea. So, what if bonsai collections, like, say, the Pacific Bonsai Museum, they they put a lot of work to make their special exhibits. What if
Hmm.
they traded their special exhibits with other public collections, you know? That could
Yeah.
kind of take out some of the work and expose the, say, World War Bonsai to more people in different areas rather than
Mm.
just the people that were able to go to Seattle for those 6 months, you know?
Right, and
Um,
that was extended too because of COVID. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Um,
it would be like a logistical challenge. And
yeah.
if you picked a couple of trees, say for the Seattle Museum to ship down to Portland to do it at the Portland Japanese Garden, then
Mm.
they would probably want some time for the trees to acclimatize before they have the exhibit. So it wouldn't be something you could really do with a ton of trees, but maybe just something to consider if any curators are listening. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, what about something on top of that? What if it was more along the lines of curators coming together and doing a show with both people at one space and then the next space they come there, as opposed to
Yeah.
having to ship trees and the whole technicalities of that, because it may die in transit. You don't want that to
Mm.
happen.
Or maybe use the
Like,
same kind of like props and stories, but use different trees to tell the story, you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, some of the significance may be lost because the trees that hold that value aren't there, but I still think
Yeah.
there's the identity of understanding and education that brings with just having that display. I don't know. I
Mm.
mean, Kelly, you do like we talked about, you're doing more outreach and volunteer work with those ones in the collections publicly. Do they hold shows or anything at those ones?
Um, y- the Huntington has a couple of bonsai shows a year. Or
Do, do they do any
oh,
special like
outreach.
what would you call it, Ryan? What would you guys call it? Like,
Exhibit, like a special
oh
exhibit
yeah, yeah,
with
yeah.
their
Thanks.
own collection, you mean?
Oh yeah, we have the Bonsai-a-thon every February.
Hmm.
Um, I think that's the only thing. Um, I know they're trying to, and when you talk to Aaron or somebody else about it, I heard it's not a secret or anything. I think that the Huntington's doing a few things. It's just there's other things that are priority. They're gonna create like a demo area, or demonstration area by the bonsai nursery so that like guests as they come through, they can see people working on the trees. So it's like out in the courtyard, they're already just finished and they're just sitting there versus walking by the nursery and you can see like volunteers or the curator or somebody working on a tree and talking about it.
Like looking through the keyhole in the door.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, what's
Yeah,
that? Or don't look behind the curtain like in Wizard of Oz.
yeah. I actually had some thoughts this weekend because CBS had a show, California Bonsai Society had a show in at the Huntington,
Okay. Hmm.
and um what was I was talking to my friend because we're like, oh yeah, people, we have visiting artists come out and they're doing a demo. And I hope I don't sound mean saying this, but like sometimes the demo trees at the club meetings are the same old little juniper, the same old, little tree. It's just so it can get raffled off. And I
Hmm.
understand, the need for that because you're trying to make money for the club. But I remember, I think it was Bjorn or something, someone that said, like at like in Europe or other places, when they do demonstrations, they do a demonstration on someone's actual tree. Like it's not to be given up to a raffle. It's like, hey, you have a nice tree that could use some work. Let us work on it for the demo. So you basically get a tree that, got worked on by somebody that knows what they're doing.
Right.
And the audience gets to see a nice tree being worked on versus like a 3-year-old juniper or a stick.
Mm.
um, so I was just thinking, I didn't really. I just kind of told one of my friends, I was like, wouldn't it be great if, because the Huntington has like 400 trees, and it's
Hmm.
hard to give them all attention, right? Because like even though you
Right.
have volunteers and stuff, the volunteers are at different levels, and there's so many hours in the day, and there's all sorts of stuff that has to be done. I was like, wouldn't it be great to with because the bonsai clubs are closely connected to the Huntington, that we like, check out a tree and as a someone that comes out that knows what they're doing, can
Hmm.
possibly work on one of those trees as a good demonstration for the club versus like a nursery stock tree. Um, and that way it's a good presentation. The Huntington benefits because a tree got worked on that probably might
Mm.
not have been worked on for a
Hmm.
long time.
Hmm.
And I don't know, I'm just getting a little uh, tired
That's
of
a really
seeing
interesting
like
point.
sticks
Yeah.
worked on. I'm like, that's just a stick. Like, can we like give him something more? And I'm sure the demonstrators are like, oh, gosh, I wish I had better material to work on. Like, why? How can you
Hmm.
showcase someone's work when they're just working on a stick? Like,
Hmm.
um,
Well,
and that's
that could
not.
also, well, not to interrupt real quick, but let me think. That could also help decrease costs of clubs or things having to be purchased, right? Because if you already have a tree
Hmm.
that's there that could do some substantial work or needs substantial work, and then
Yeah,
demonstrate that, that's,
I'd rather see that for
you know,
myself, like instead of the
right.
same old run of the mill demonstration. Like we're paying so much to have this person come out to go do the circuit. I call it the bonsai circuit here, and like they're gonna work literally on a stick. Like I'm looking at it, I was like, what else can you do with that except turn into a bunjin?
We'll be right back. This episode is sponsored by the Waterfront Botanical Gardens' third annual Bonsai Weekend in Louisville, Kentucky. Details at bonsaiweekend.com. Come visit Kentucky's newest botanic garden and see what's growing with the Greater Louisville Bonsai Society. The show will feature guest judge Owen Reich, bonsai workshops, demonstrations, cultural activities, food and drink, koi fish on display from the Louisville Koi Society, and an expanded selection of vendors for all your bonsai needs. I'll be there too, and I hope to see you there on May 30th to June 1st. Tickets are now on sale at bonsaiweekend.com. Now back to the show.
So the thing that makes me think with that though too is there are some stipulations with those trees and those collections because you know if it's the U.S. government owned trees, you can't really do that because those have to be in
Oh
a
yeah, these are
certain
not.
specific thing, right? And then you
Mhm.
have those. Is the Huntington a nonprofit or is it a private or you know?
It's nonprofit, but so
Okay.
the trees, what is it, 100 I think belong to the Huntington. I could be wrong, but 100 belong to the Huntington and maybe 300 belong to the Golden State Bonsai Federation, which is like
Oh,
California's organization.
huh. That's an
So
interesting setup.
Yeah, I was like, I never heard
yeah,
that before. Do you know how that
What?
started?
Yeah.
I don't, but I'm sure other people do.
I
that
remember
Probably
that
like
necessary. Where
the
you
Golden
at?
State Club, they have a bunch of trees in a northern, like maybe Lake Merritt collection or
Yep.
something, right?
And then
So
there's
they've
a
got it
Clark,
in two spots,
three spots. So
three
there's a
spots.
in Central California, a Clark collection. I've
Wow.
not seen that one yet.
More people to get permission from, but I guess if you can ask two different people or two different groups, one of them's going to say yes, right?
Well, I figure Huntington might. I mean, I
Hmm.
didn't run that. I was just thinking about it. I was like, wow, all those trees need to be worked on. There's not enough people to do it, and it's not like we have to take a very like significant out of there, but just something substantial that I
Hmm.
mean, any of those trees would be worth looking at a demo when someone's working on it versus like I'm telling you, like it's like I'm not trying to make fun of anything. It's just like, well, we've seen that like 5 times this year or last year. Like, if you're gonna do
Right.
another one with just
Right.
a different
Hmm.
person, and I'm
Right.
thinking at the fit like from the start to the end, if you knew where the direction was going, like you could have done that in five. Like I could have gone up there, chopped all that off, and wired it. Like if I knew that was what it was going to look like at the end. And I'm not like a
Right.
great artist or
Right.
anything.
Mm.
So, or talk about, oh, here's a tree that's unhealthy. This is what it looks like, and we're trying to bring it to health. And talk about, I don't know, things that aren't always the same.
Mm.
That's a good
Mm.
idea. You should tell your boards that, your local
Yeah.
boards.
Yeah, I just gotta get
Everybody in a bonsai
myself.
club.
Hmm.
Well, I feel like once if I say something that I need to be part of it, so I'm like, okay, do I have
Hmm.
the
Well,
ability to be part of this?
now it's set. It's out there forever.
You can be the Huntington liaison.
Hey, anybody out there can use it. Just go to your
Go to your local bonsai club.
yeah, your like what a museum or somebody and see if they need help. You guys can help.
Yeah, I
Well, that
bet the
brings
Arboretum here would let us do it because they let Kevin bring home some trees to work on.
Yeah, I mean, if
yeah,
it's like
yeah,
they
yeah. They would
trust,
love that. Yeah, they
yeah,
would love
Hmm.
that idea because it's free work.
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I mean, it benefits both, right? Um,
Mm,
you
mm.
get a good demo tree, and they got something worked on for you know.
Yeah, as
Uh,
long
But
as
that
they
leads to
trust the supervision, you know.
that leads to the other question though that I brought up in the beginning. When do you preserve this provenance of the tree that was known for being this way, and when do you push to create a image that is somewhat adjacent to the original, you know?
The
Do
I
you,
would
you
the
know?
health of the tree when the health of the tree or the
Right,
proportion
right,
gets out of control.
right. But sometimes those decisions are made by those organizations, right? Where they may not fully
Oh,
comprehend
so it's
because,
interesting. This
you
weekend,
know,
somebody that's still alive donated a tree, and he has a picture of it, right? So
I like how you preface it. You're still alive. What's
yeah, he's
I thought you meant the
I
tree was still alive,
no, the
not the
was
tree's
like,
alive.
that's,
person.
yeah. I was like,
No,
how are we going
the
with this?
donors, because usually people donate when they're no longer, or
Mm.
somebody donates it for them.
Yes,
But
yes.
so this person's still alive, and he went up to one of the curators, and he's like, "Look at my tree. Somebody cut the lower branch off. It
Oh,
now it looks like a triangle. Like, well, I don't know what he was saying, but so like a maybe not the way he had it at the beginning when he donated it, but it's like,
mhm.
what can you do at that point? It's like, well, you did don't. I mean, I'm not saying
Mm.
that was right or wrong to cut it. It's just
Right,
once you donate, it's kind of out of your hands, unless you want to volunteer and work on the tree as well. And who
Mm.
knows what could have happened? Maybe it snapped, maybe it died. It's like no one had the answer. Like what he was asking, what happened to it? He wasn't upset, but he's just kind of curious because he's like, my design for the tree was to have that lower branch, and it's not there anymore.
right. It's the identity of the person in the tree, right? Or their own personality.
Yeah,
Mm.
and I mean, I don't
Hmm.
know. Maybe it did look better with the lower branch. Just who knows what happened to it? It could be a million reasons.
Well, I
Yeah,
heard you,
when
I heard you just say something like, what if he was the one just to continue working on it? And that made me think, well, then why did he give it up? If he's just going to go to the garden and work it there. I mean, maybe he doesn't want to water it
Too
anymore. I
heavy,
don't know.
too heavy.
mm.
I think a lot
Oh,
of
okay.
them, yeah,
Okay.
it's too heavy.
That makes sense. That's like what Chase Rosado was saying is like, I want small trees. My back can't handle the big ones anymore. I'm like, fair,
I mean,
fair.
me saying they're still alive probably indicates they're older.
I'm glad you specified because I was looking at Ryan like, wait, the tree's still alive? That's a good thing. Yeah, that's what we want. Yeah, it's just one of those things that makes me think about it in relation to like how we pursue our own desires comparatively to historical preservation, but we can't preserve it in one shape its whole life because
Mhm.
it's detrimental, right?
Mm.
But there are things in certain collections, whether they be like government owned or private or other things that certain people don't want them to change. And then you're in a different concentration of like, well, how do I make this horticulturally healthy and also preserve without impacting long term, right? And
So
I don't know how to do that.
I don't know if you were the one or somebody else that said this.
Sure, it was me.
Um,
No, I'm kidding.
Maybe it was you. Just gonna give you credit for it.
I'll take
Basically these
it.
collections are not like for artistic pursuits. Like you're going there to maintain the collection, not to create a tree or like from scratch, mostly mainly.
It's funny you say that because Ryan, remember when we first met them on site and talked to trees and walked to the trees at Dawes, and we asked
Mm.
them specifically how much free range we have with the trees because we were treading lightly because we didn't want to misinterpret their desires or wants or
Or
needs.
do too much work.
Yeah, or like change something that like that wasn't supposed to be changed ever.
Mm.
How did we go about that?
I don't really remember. My general impression is that they're kind of like do whatever, and
Yeah,
then
I remember. Yeah,
we
they're like
put it on
we just need these trees
ourselves
to
to
look
be
good,
more um
conservative.
yeah, circumspect or like more conserved. Yeah. That's
You guys were
been
the
our
bonsai
own
experts.
imposition.
Yeah, no, no, far from it. They gave us way too much credit, but we did do a lot of good work. I mean, Ryan, you have that one coming up, right? Or have you already
Mhm.
done it?
End of the month, March 29th. Hey, this is a good spot for a plug. So, if anyone's in Columbus or Newark area, the morning of March 29th, I'll be doing a bonsai workshop at the Dawes Arboretum. Come on down. Observers welcome. Tickets also available. Beginner indoor bonsai workshop. And then some of that money will go towards the Dawes Arboretum and their bonsai collection. And then in the afternoon, then we're doing the maintenance repotting of the Dawes trees. So you can email me if you want to help out with that.
You got 2 weeks to put this episode
Yes.
out.
But it should be a quick episode if I can
Yeah.
find a
But
spare.
also, we don't need to take a commercial break for that. We could just keep talking about it.
Mm,
This will be an ongoing thing, right? Because there will be more volunteers this time and
that's
other things
true.
that way. Because
Yeah,
it started last year and it's hopefully going to be
it might
continuing
become
on,
an annual thing. We did the repotting last year. We might do it the same way next year. So
right,
yeah.
right.
I'm trying,
Yeah,
this is a tangent, but I'm trying right now to push them to market their bonsai a little bit better. Like if you go to the Dawes
yeah.
Arboretum website, there's no mention of the fact that they have bonsai. If
Oh,
you
I bet that
search
would be a
bonsai,
good
it doesn't really
draw.
come up. Yeah. Um, anyways, I'm only here maybe a year or two or three. Hopefully, I'm graduated by then. But but I'm
You
trying
and
to
you and
push
Buck and
them.
Claire.
Yeah, I'm trying to push them to, I guess, market it a little more. Maybe start making an email list for people in the area interested in their collection, so then they can find other volunteers and not just,
Well, not only
have it
that
end when
though,
I move away next.
not only that, the club should be able to take it on too.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's a good option too. But the
It's just
more
finding the
interest
time to
there
do
is
it.
at
Yeah,
Dawes, like in the local area, the better the trees will be. Because
yeah.
Dawes is like an hour round trip from my house, so I don't have time to go there all the time. So if someone locally
Wait,
there
how
wanted,
fast are you driving? An hour round trip? It's like almost an
okay,
hour one
maybe
way.
maybe an hour and a half.
The
Yeah.
lead foot Ryan right there. Watch
It
out, boy.
depends if there's traffic, then it's more than that for sure.
Which city is that in?
So it's a
Uh,
city no one's ever heard of. It's Newark, Ohio. Well, you've heard
People
of
have
it
heard of
because
it.
it sounds
The
like New Jersey.
Yeah.
I never put that together. But people have
Yeah.
heard of it. The people that live there, obviously.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But nobody listening has heard of it, probably.
I've
People in
never heard of
Ohio
it.
have.
I don't know
Well, I
how
mean, it's
many Ohio
California.
listeners we have.
California is its own country. I mean, the what third largest economy in in the world.
Yeah,
Ah,
there's some numbers of people that listen, but I don't know anything about them. They could be bots for all I know. So,
We love you all.
yeah.
we love the bots.
Yeah.
No, it's yeah, just going back to that thing with Hiroshima, to circle back, it's gonna take some time to really, I don't want to say ferment, but more like ruminate on something in relation to I don't even know what I was searching for. Maybe just some interesting or some understanding or some identity that I was trying to see. Because as Americans, we've learned this whole history of the bombing, right, in one way or another.
Mhm.
But in Japan, it's completely taught in almost not a 180, but it's such a different approach
I
because it's taught, it's in movies. There's an animated film about it.
mm,
I mean, kids learn it at a very young age over there, but in an extensive relation of like, this is what happened because our country did this, and then this is what happened in retaliation of what our country was doing. And don't quote me on that. That's just from my own understanding of what I've read, what I've been told by my other half of my family, and things in that way. And it's my own interpretation as an American, obviously, and I'm not Japanese, obviously. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm just thinking about it way too far into bonsai, but I mean, that's what I do and that's what I enjoy and that's what I love to do. So,
I would bet though that the dropping of the atomic bomb is a much bigger historical event as perceived by their country than ours. Like, I don't know if
yeah, I
you
mean,
two remember how your US history class here, how
yeah,
much I feel like they probably mentioned it in a day that it happened and didn't really go much deeper than that.
yeah, you're right.
And
Yeah, I mean, yeah. What about you, Kelly? Was yours more in tune in California? I don't know. I mean, higher Japanese
No,
population than there. Okay.
same as what Ryan said. There was a neat little book on that, like a cartoony book, a children's book,
Hmm.
um, on that tree.
Oh, yeah. I bought it for Chase Rosé, gave it to me for Juniper. Yeah.
Yeah,
mm,
it's a so at the Japanese cultural centers, I think they do teach it a little bit
Mm-hmm.
deeper than like in a regular school. Um, and now you got me thinking, Kevin, if I ever go to Hiroshima, I'm gonna brace myself. I can prepare to go
Well,
see that museum.
I mean, that's the thing.
Mm.
I will say, I thought I was prepared. No way. You can't prepare for that stuff. And I don't mean to say that's not, I hope that doesn't sound like derogatory or like, oh man, but like expect nothing and take in everything. That's all I can say if you decide to go. And everyone should go. It's a big thing of understanding of why atomic bombs and things are should never be used again. It was insane to see. They had a simulation, a simulated video playing where they had the drop, and it's how much of a spread out it was, and it was just insane the capacity that this had, you know. And there was also a bomb dropped in Nagasaki. You know, Hiroshima's one of the two is usually talked more than the other, but there was two bombings. But Hiroshima has a larger, from my understanding, a larger memorial in the museum.
Mm.
Nagasaki has one as well, but I obviously have never been to that one. And like I said, I have a bias because the tree that I wanted to see, and I've been influenced by it, I guess, more because I have a familial tie to the country of origin. So there's that. And then also too, I was going to mention, not that I keep talking about my family, but last summer I brought my mom to the museum because we were up in that area as a family trip and doing some other things. And my mom tagged along for her vacation in summer, and we went to the museum in DC, the National Bonsai Museum, and my daughter was there. And as I'm sure y'all listeners know or should know by now, my daughter's part Japanese and part American. And she walked up to the tree, and there is a boundary that's kind of like a fence. She was just tall enough to go on the tiptoes and kind of peek over with her nose on the top railing and just stared at the tree for about, it felt like an eternity, but it was probably no more than 2 minutes. But I heard her go, just like that. And I was like, wow, she gets it. And maybe it's some influence of just seeing trees from the yard and her having her own juniper that she touches and says hello every morning, you know, and things in that way. But I don't know, there's definitely energy in that tree, pun intended, of course, because, you know, Kelly, I would like to hear your thoughts on this. Did that tree kind of pull you in when you walked to it?
I mean, I went looking for it because
Right.
I was
You
reading
want to
about
see
it,
it,
so I
right?
was looking for it, and it was kind of off on its own. It was winter, so a lot of the other trees were put away.
Mm-hmm.
And as you said that about juniper, your daughter looking up
Mm-hmm.
at it.
Yeah.
So I did crouch down to look up
Mm-hmm.
from underneath just to see the branching, and it's pretty nice. Um,
Yeah.
did it pull me in?
Or like, did it have this like force field of like, I guess for me, I just saw it. And then, you know, my wife and I, we started crying just because in relation to our
Oh,
family has created this dynamic of peace in some kind of instance, I guess, if we want to say it that. That sounds cheesy, but whatever. But
I mean, it was
um
emotional, and also just beyond it, just where it came from and how it survived.
mm,
It, reading it because I think the plaque there says it was pretty sure it was 9 generations. I don't know why that sticks in my head because I thought, wow, 9 generations of a family took care of this tree and they gave it up to give to the US. Um, and it is probably, I think it's one of the better trees in Japan, right? I don't know. Um, so I think there was a lot of emotion there. I don't think I cried, but it was
well,
interesting.
right. Yeah,
And I made
I
sure to
just,
stand there like by myself for a while just to look at it and make sure like I was taking it in.
I mean, call me out like you want. I'm just a big softie. I get it. No.
No, no.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I mean, Ryan, you haven't seen it yet, right? In person?
Not yet, but this May, I'm looking forward to it.
You're gonna go in May. Good, good.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, everything will be out by then. Yeah, that'll be wonderful because it's it's intense, man. There's a lot of wonderful trees at the museum. And I'm looking at they were potting the world famous Yamaki pine. That was April 2nd, 2020. This was done. And I'm seeing a picture of the caption underneath says Andy Bello with the Yamaki pine during the repotting. It looks like it's held up by a straps that are surrounded by soft cloth or something so it doesn't break anything. And it appears to be on a pulley system because that tree is so big. It's like 400 plus pounds or something. It's it's huge. Like
Sorry if I sound dumb, but like Yamaki pine, what is that?
Is that the family
the
or
Maki family, yeah, the
okay.
family is
Oh,
the
okay.
Yamaki
Got it.
family. So it's a Japanese white pine, but the Yamaki family. Um,
We're the ones that cared for
uh,
it.
yes,
Mm.
yeah. It's oh, I misspoke earlier. It's in the Smithsonian Magazine online article. Um,
Hmm.
yeah. So I'm trying to find here real quick for our listeners. Where is it? Many generations. It doesn't tell me. We can put that out later. But I wish I remember that. But yeah, it's a provenance and significance where I guess for me it was more impactful of my family and how that is influenced our own history, obviously, whether it be culture, political, or otherwise. Yeah, I don't know. I just love trees so much. It just makes me want to go dive more. Like my next mission when I get to Japan next is to try to go find the location of the actual Yamaki nursery, family nursery, if it's still there, which I didn't see it. I looked when I was there, but I didn't have time and it was quite cold. It was still winter when we were there. So I didn't want to be out too long as I didn't want to get, cold and sick. But even to see if there's something in like the city hall records or something in relation to where in about location wise this nursery was, and is there any other bonsai nurseries around there that would have some history of the family or a way to get in hold of them? Thought that'd be
Hmm.
kind of cool, and then maybe like see about talking with them and reporting what it means to them to have the tree in the U.S. or something. I don't know. Maybe it's already been done and just haven't found it yet, or maybe it's not
Or
written in
maybe it's
English.
in Japanese, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, knowing maybe that, but I
There
don't
might be
know.
a YouTube video on it. I would
There's a
think there might be one.
few. I went down a deep rabbit hole on that 4 hour train ride back to Tokyo, within trying to find more information, but there wasn't much I could find. And it could have been based on country access because, certain things aren't allowed in or available to be seen in certain countries that is allowed in the US or vice versa.
Hmm.
So it could have been that. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, that's just what I wanted to chat about today. Is this was been on my mind since I went, and I was like, who better to talk about it with than Ryan and Kelly?
So if I can try to recap this conversation in a way, do you think that the fact that the Hiroshima surviving pine is in the
Hiroshima. You
US?
sound you sound like an older man. Hiroshima.
Sorry.
Yeah, brother,
Yeah.
brother.
Do you think that the Hiroshima
No.
surviving pine,
Hiro. And
how do
my
you say it
wife's
in
voice is
Japanese?
made.
Like, what's the Japanese accent?
Hiroshima.
Okay. Do you think the
And, I,
Hiroshima,
and I'm not
uh,
trying to sound like that white guy. Like, no, you're saying it
okay.
wrong.
Anyways, do you think
Uh,
that the fact that the Yamaki pine is in the US, is that almost like taking a piece of that Hiroshima? Now I'm doubting how I'm saying it, but is
The
it
tree, just say
like
the tree.
having a piece of that museum in the US, like we can't have all the same
mm,
components of the museum because it's not in the same place. But
right.
it can be bringing that pine here can make us think about what basically our ancestors did in that war, and like think about how that impacted people, how that if we made a similar decision going forward, how that would impact other people.
Wait, Ryan, I want you to answer something before Kelly and I talk about it. That's all right, Kelly. Since
Hmm.
you haven't seen it, you've only seen it in pictures and you've heard us talk about it now.
Hmm.
Is there any anticipation that you're feeling or anything in relation to a feeling of just like, what am I going to see? How am I going to be influenced because of what we've said or what you've read online? Is there anything that you're feeling that way or anything at all
I guess
to go
I'm
see?
interested to see how they've presented the story because I've heard about the story, but I haven't seen how the museum has curated it, like what they're trying to evoke from the viewer. And I am also curious to see the quality of the tree, like look under the hood. Like, Kelly was saying.
Yeah, yeah,
But I feel like that's really secondary to just
yeah.
seeing the tree for the history that it is, you know?
Well, and there's a lot to extrapolate from it, right? Because there's
Mm,
that provenance, but also the other technicalities or little fine-tuning things, like you said, you know.
mm,
I don't know, Kelly, what do you think of Ryan's question or recap in relation to like, does it influence any bonsai politics?
mm.
I'm sorry I got lost. What was the question?
We got lost trying to pronounce Hiroshima. So so I was asking, do you think that the fact that that tree is in the US, is that equivalent to having a small part of that Hiroshima Museum
Hiroshima.
being here in the US?
I don't know much about the museum except what Kevin, I mean, it makes sense that there's a museum, but I never even thought about it. I think it's just a part of what happened during the war that they're giving us or giving the US um, as a symbol of peace. And I thought that
Hmm.
was really sweet and nice. I think the story's in one of the buildings, so you might have to look for that. I don't think it's right next to the
Hmm,
tree or anything.
I think
interesting.
you're right. Yeah, yeah, it just was there.
Hmm,
I don't remember. But on the other hand, I think that brings up a really good question to ponder even further, Ryan, in relation to what you just asked. Is like, does a piece of that artifact being here, does it bring a bigger or a different understanding of what it means in the Americas, right? Because, from my opinion, having seen the physical site of the massacre and everything, it does give me a feeling of like, yes, there is a piece of this here for us to learn from. I mean, if most people go into that public garden at National Arboretum and go in there and they read about it, I saw people that had no clue bonsai, did anything bonsai, whatever, that read about that tree when I was there this last summer with my daughter and my mom. They were just like, wow, they were like, it's amazing, but it's also that it's like, oh wow, that kind of has some, you know, sorrow a little bit with it because we have a piece of that to know what happened and everyone knows that story, but I think it brings it more of a real application, because you can read it in a book, but until you either go there and see it or you have something that was there and brought over here, I think it's a different interpretation. That's only my opinion, of course, right? But yeah, I don't know. That's you brought up a really good recap question, Ryan. You always do. Damn you.
we can let it float out in the ether for our listeners.
I was gonna say, if any listeners have any thoughts or comments, please, let it ride. I mean,
Mm.
I would love to hear from any listeners, private message us or not, or make it a public post, comment. Have you been to the museum in Hiroshima? What was your thoughts on it? Have you seen the tree in DC? What are your thoughts on it? I mean, maybe start your own conversation, not just with yourself, but, have you worked on trees of provenance or something that's local provenance, I mean, take better records. Yeah.
I
I
think
don't
we could
know.
always do better in that, take better records.
Yeah, I know I need to get better at it. Yeah, it's interesting. Hmm. I don't know. That's all my brain has capacity for. I say until next time, y'all.
Until next time,
Bonsai on.
Bonsai on.
bonsai on. The Bonsai Time podcast has been produced by Kevin Ferris, Ryan Houston, and Kelly Louie. Find more information, relevant pictures, and links for each episode in the episode description and in our show notes at www.bonsaitimepodcast.com. To support us in creating more episodes, please remember to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. To go the extra mile, reach out if you'd like to consider sponsoring an episode. To submit questions for future Bonsai Brainstorm episodes or any other suggestions or feedback, reach out to us on social media, through our website, or at bonsaitimepodcast@gmail.com. We are Bonsai Time Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and all podcast apps, and at Bonsai Time Pod on TikTok. Lastly, find your host at the links in the description or on Instagram at Kevin_Ferris Bonsai, Bonsai with Kelly, and Ryan is at InVivo Bonsai everywhere or www.invivobonsai.com. Thanks for listening.